I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you who joined me last week with our first ELA Google Meet and also during our Blue 7 team time. I'll talk more about that in a couple of minutes. But I hope you're enjoying All Summer in a Day. Like I said last week, it's absolutely one of my favorite short stories, and I'm really glad that we brought it back this year. I do want to show you, just as a quick review in Classroom, just to take a look at information that you can get. I will, on Monday, post a new s'more newsletter. Those are really helpful if you just kind of want to see what we're up to this week, what the focus is. And then, of course, I always have some embarrassing or funny family photos included in that. So there'll be a new s'more here on Monday. Down here, I will be updating, and this is where your video will appear for All Summer in a Day. Later this week, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about independent reading. I think there's going to be a new platform that I'll be offering those of you that are looking to give book suggestions or to get book suggestions. So be looking for that video on Wednesday. Today, the video lesson I'm providing is actually for just the short story All Summer in a Day. This video lesson will be including the instruction for both Monday, which is the 27th, and then also for Wednesday, the 29th. So this video includes both video lessons for the short story All Summer in a Day. Before I jump into that, in addition to the s'more newsletter, you guys, I think after a couple weeks, you're going to get a hang of the schedule. On Mondays and Wednesdays, that's when I will post any new work for ELA. It's really important that you read the information that I post. That way you can see what slides to do on what day. As I mentioned this week in the Google Meets, the idea is that we post information, but you can still kind of work at your own pace. And that's why Friday is, I guess, you have less meetings and teachers and all of that, as it's meant to be a day for you to get caught up. So I've got the s'more newsletter, and then the Google Meets for ELA. Those will always be on Monday. For right now, I'm going to be holding a Google Meet every Monday. They're going to be either 10 or 15 minutes per class. That's how I'm going to run it for now. I am going to be posting, I just came up with this. What I will do on Friday, so you should already have this in Classroom. I just did a Google slide that you'll see the time that you need to go into Classroom. And then many of you saw this last week. Some of you shot me a few emails, but then you figured it out. The new Google Meet time and code is going to be located right here in the stream. So again, you'll have to look at that slide, see what time, set your alarms, and then you'll have to look for the code right here. You won't be getting a calendar alert or an individual email from me. So we will plan on meeting every Monday. That's just for ELA in 10 to 15 minute increments. They've asked us to kind of limit the time there. So hopefully that's enough time. I'll be there for just questions and answers and also just to talk about the short story. So that'll be on Monday. Tuesday's a little different, the team time. And I think some of you kind of got the hang of it the other day. It's kind of like when you stay after school for extra help. You get to kind of bounce in and out of your teachers' classrooms and chat with us, whether you have a question that's academic, you just want to touch base. So that is on Tuesday. So Tuesday starts with a T, team time, and it'll always be from 1 to 2 p.m. That's our slated team time for 7th grade. And then, like I said, with the code, we'll have that posted. That's going to be a little bit different because we're going to use the nickname feature. I think most of your teachers are using that. So Mondays, ELA, Google Meet, Tuesdays, team time. All right, let's get into All Summer in a Day. So this is Monday's video lesson. I'm just going to recap what you did last week. You may want to take a look and go back and look at your slides. If I went over anything and you're like, oh, I didn't do that, not a big deal. Just go back now and amend and fix that. I will be doing a check-in that I'll update in School Tool in a couple of weeks. So you do want to make sure that you're staying current with your slides. So for All Summer in a Day, hopefully you took a look at Ray Bradbury as an author. I hope you clicked on these links. This right here is one of my favorite of all times, Elton John songs, which I didn't realize was actually inspired by the author Ray Bradbury. So this just gives you a little background information on the author. This talked a little bit about the genre of science fiction, and I asked you to type and kind of come up with your own ideas here. And then finally, this was a pre-reading activity. We will come back to this slide at the end of the short story. You'll see that these topics and questions actually directly relate to the plot or conflict or characters. This is what we're going to get into this week. So our focus for All Summer in a Day is to look at the story itself, just as it reads as a story, but also focus on 4 different literary terms. So I thought for today's lesson, for Monday, we're just going to focus on setting and characterization. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to have you look at conflict and mood. Don't forget that you do have these definitions. It's way down in your classroom page now, I believe under ELA resources, but that's where you'll find the complete copy of your literary terms. To kind of simplify things, what I did though, I literally went to that document and I copied and pasted those definitions. So please refer back to this slide as you progress and move through the activities this week. If you can't remember the definition or you're not quite sure, this is meant to be a reference slide. Speaking of references, I will ask you this week for some text-based references. What you should immediately do is go back to this slide here and click and take a look at the actual copy of the text. It is a PDF. Hopefully you can copy and paste. Just don't forget that I know we're not in school, but I would ask that you try to practice your MLA. And if you use any words from Ray Bradbury, you just put them in quotation marks with his last name in parentheses. That would be great. So again, for reference, you've got the short story that you may need to refer back to this week, and also your literary terms. So today, Monday, we're going to focus on setting. So when and where our story takes place. Obviously, now that you've already read All Summer in a Day, you realize it has a pretty unique setting to it. So you have a few text boxes here that I'm asking you a couple of guiding questions. So I'd like you to just fill that in. Again, I don't think you have to use complete sentences. Bullets are fine. And then down here, I've given you actually a passage from the story, and then I'm asking you to respond to how the setting impacts the characters. So now we're kind of doing a hybrid here where we're bringing 2 literary terms together, but you're talking about the setting, but also how it's starting to impact the children who live there. So when and where our story takes place, setting, that's your literary term number 1 for this week. The second literary term is characterization. Remember, characterization, yes, it's important what a character looks like, but it's really getting at how does the character act? What do they do? What do they say? I also am going to be using this word quite a bit throughout this hyperdoc, throughout this unit, and that's the word inference. Just remember that if I ask you to make an inference, all it is just an educated guess based on the text. So based on what you've read, what would be a logical guess or logical conclusion? So this is asking you to take a look at who I consider to be the protagonist, and that's Margot. And again, that's how you pronounce her name, Margot. I know a lot of you are going to want to call her Margot, but it's Margot. So I'm asking you to look at Margot and really look at her as a character. There's a physical description of her. There's a description of how kids perceive her, how she maybe perceives herself. And I have a link right here to a character trait chart. I will have to fix that typo there. It should not say trail, but the character trait chart, you're going to want to go there and just take a look at some different adjectives. Remember, we're trying to get away from, oh, she's nice, or she seems sad. While those are fine descriptors, we're in 7th grade and now almost 8th grade. We want to be a little more sophisticated. So again, that should say your character trait chart, but you want to click on that hyperdoc link there, and that'll take you where you can find some stronger adjectives. So you're going to focus here and look for evidence again from the text. Might have to go back to that slide with the PDF copy of the story. And then over here, this is asking you to look at Margot through the lens of her classmates. So just to recap for Monday, on Monday, I need you to focus on the setting and characterization for All Summer in a Day. If you can, please join me for our ELA Google Meet. They will always be between 9 and 10:45 a.m. on Monday mornings. That's our slated time. We'll meet for 10 to 15 minutes per class, and I'll have those times posted by the weekend. And if you want to go ahead and pause the video, you've concluded Monday's lesson. I'm going to take a break, and then we'll take a look at our focus for Wednesday. Okay, boys and girls, now we're moving on to Wednesday's video lesson. And if you just bear with me, my Chromebook is a little laggy. There we are. Okay, so on Monday, I asked you to focus on setting and characterization. You definitely had to go and look into the text, hopefully on slide number 11. That's really, again, focusing on Margot, but looking at how you can make an inference, you can make an educated guess based on her actions and how they might impact not only herself, but the other kids in the story, and then just the story and how it moves along. So again, your slide focus on Monday, as of now, slides 10, 11, and 12, or excuse me, let me back up. Slides 9, 10, and 11 should be done. This needs more coffee. Hold on. I've been up since 5:30 and decided it'd be a good idea to record this early. I don't know what I was thinking. So now for Wednesday's lesson, you're going to want to take a look at our next literary term, which is conflict. And let me enlarge this here. You guys remember that conflict is just a struggle between two forces. It can be character to character, character to themselves, to society, to nature. So if you take a look at the top, it says, as you fill in the chart, remember that there are many different types of conflicts that you can include. Man versus self, man versus society, man versus nature, etc. In the last column, think about how this conflict plays a part in the overall story. What happens? How do these conflicts impact the story? So if you take a look, I've actually given you some guiding questions here. I'm asking you to find an example from the text that would support these questions. And then over here, this is where you're making, again, that inference or that educated guess. Based on your answers here, the examples, what do you think's really going on in this story? So for example, Margot's conflicts. What problem is she facing? Is there more than one problem? Think about your different conflicts up here, okay? Down here, how Margot responds. How does she respond to the conflicts? How does she respond to the other characters? You're finding evidence. And then over here, you're taking an educated guess based on what you have here. Why do you think that that's a conflict? What's really at the heart of the issue there? So that's your first conflict. Or your first and only conflict slide. And then finally, we're getting into mood. So if you remember mood, we did a lot of practice with this with the outsiders when we did our book clubs. So this wheel should look familiar to you. I actually took it right off of Classroom. Mood is the emotional feeling that you get as the reader, and it's set by the tone or the language that the author uses. So using Ray Bradbury's words, okay, the language that he uses, how does that create a mood for you as the reader, that emotional response? Please feel free to refer back to this mood wheel. It's here. It's beautiful and it's very colorful, but it's also meant as a reference. So if you take a look, it says, read the passage below. Based on the tone, again, Ray Bradbury's language, based on the tone and language that Ray Bradbury uses, what would you determine the mood of this passage to be? Refer back to the mood wheel on the previous slide to help. So if you take a look, it's one simple passage here. You're literally going to just type. You can take out that line and you're going to come up with, using this wheel over here, what you think a good adjective would be to describe it. And then there's another step here, and please make sure you read carefully. It says then highlight words from the passage that led you to pick that particular word. Boys and girls, this is very, very similar to what we did with the outsiders, where you were given a passage, you then had to come up with an adjective and then just cite text-based evidence to support it. So this is your focus for Wednesday. Not too bad. You're looking at mood. You're also looking at conflict and how those conflicts impact the characterization and the setting that you established. Wednesday is a great day that if maybe you didn't get through all of your slides Monday, you could go back, check it over, take a look. Like I said, not obviously this week, but the following week, please plan on having a check-in where I'm going to ask that a certain number of slides are done, and I will actually be going in and checking everyone's hyperdocs and then updating that in School Tool. That's going to conclude All Summer in a Day for today. The only other things I just want to talk to you guys about, I will be in touch next week about independent reading. Also, in talking about school tools, I just mentioned, I have updated that. So if you haven't logged in, remember we're doing a different grading policy now with grades, and you will see different codes put in. If you've got that, it is completed, you're good to go. You have credit for that. If you see anything on there and you thought you handed something in, but it's not showing up, then you definitely need to reach out to me via email, and I'll be happy to chat with you about that. And then the other thing too, don't forget that for third quarter, if there are any grades that you maybe failed or you never did or didn't get credit, please reach out to me and we can talk about that. We have to devise a plan and set that up. We're not redoing unit tests. I do want to make that clear with the outsiders. Partly because that was so long ago, but also that's just been a policy all year that unit tests, we don't do redos on those. But if you miss points on, say, the figurative language quiz that we took right before we had to leave, or maybe you missed a half a point or a point on something else earlier in third quarter, all you need to do is reach out. And the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about today is just if you are enjoying Ray Bradbury and All Summer in a Day, I would highly encourage you to take a look at some of his other short stories. Next year in 8th grade, you will read one by him. It's called The Veld. When I taught 8th grade for 9 years, that was also one of my favorite short stories. There's evil children in that one as well. But he's got a ton of others out there. Some are more on like a dystopian kind of angle, while others are definitely more that like science fiction, I don't want to say aliens, but kind of along those lines a little bit more. I've actually been reading Fahrenheit 451. This is probably his most infamous stories. Most kids in junior or senior year read it in high school. It's funny, after reading All Summer in a Day a couple of times now, and then reading this, I was talking to you today about tone and mood. The language that he uses, a lot of the words, or just the style, it's kind of crazy how similar in Fahrenheit 451, how similar that is. So I would highly recommend. It is high school level, but please take a look at Ray Bradbury. There are a lot of things out there by him. I hope you're doing well with the short story. And like I said, definitely check in on Wednesday. I'll have more information about independent reading and how we'll be doing that moving forward. Hope you guys are doing well. See you soon.